Okay, guys, we're gonna get started. Thank all of you for coming today. You have no idea how grateful I am to see all of you. Adam Bannister, it would appear that you are a well-loved man. All these people came to hear your story, so thank you for being here. How's it feel to be back? You probably had class from her, probably, right? In this, right?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. It's a little strange to be up here. I've never spoken from this platform yet. The last time was Bio 101. So I'm not going to teach you anything about that though, because I was a bio major and I don't want to embarrass myself right at the start. So. But it is strange. But it feels good and it's wonderful to see all these lovely faces. I haven't seen it so long.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask every single person that I talk to. I selfishly need a new playlist. And so, what is a song that you think, and a shameless plug if you want to include that, that's awesome. What is a song that you think we or I cannot know about and need to add to this playlist that I'm collecting?
So I actually would like to share a song that we released today. The Songs Revival music ministry. It's called Running to the Chapel, and it just came out on all media platforms. And I'll explain kind of the background behind it, and actually sing it for you later. But that's a song I would give to add to the playlist.
It's not.
It's on
music?
Yeah, it's on everything.
Okay, tonight that will happen. Okay, so tell us a little about your background, family, interests, where you're from.
Yeah, so I'm from about an hour and a half from here in Pittsburgh. I grew up in a Christian household and then came to Grove City. And then I just graduated last year in 2020. And so during the weird pandemic COVID season, and studied biology and biblical and religious studies, and now I'm going into music. So it all just really went right in one to the next, right?
So you were a double major, bars in.
I'm
sensing a common theme in the Bannister household with your sister. At least had a minor, or
she's a double major.
Okay, overachiever.
She went up. Yeah, that's kind
of. Okay, so you came in as a pre-med major. Why did you decide that was for you? Like, what made you decide the pre-med life was something that you were interested in? And then coming in, did you ever have any hesitations about that being for you?
Yeah. So I came in as pre-med planning to become a doctor. I had a desire to go into missions, like overseas, thinking maybe that would be like 1 week every now and then traveling and then coming back and living in the States full time. But going all the way through medicine. And one thing I did learn is like biology really grew my faith. But like there's many times when, especially at the start, like freshman year, like I was like, is this like the right major for me? Like, man, like, these grades aren't as high as I thought they were gonna be. But it was just like, it was definitely, and yeah, during Bio 101, that was like a reality check. So there's many times when I was like, is this the right degree? Is this the right major? And it took patience and perseverance to change and like how I went about things, and like honestly, just a lot of faith and trust in the Lord to like see how He was going to use all of this later and like where He was going to lead me post college, whether that was going to be med school or not. So.
Did you ever like hesitate if that was coming, at least coming in? I know later you did, but coming in, was there a shadow of a doubt in your mind that was not the life that you wanted for yourself?
I think when I came in, no, I think I was still on that track and motivated. It was just a change in reality of how I had to go about things.
I mean, I got a 76 on my first Bio 101 test, and it is a total reality.
I think I was like right there.
Yes.
So, yeah. But I graduated, so
yeah.
no.
So then when you were a sophomore, you took from what I can gather a fairly formative trip to Guatemala. And that was during your winter break of sophomore year?
It was my summer. So I
interned
in Guatemala as a medical intern.
Okay. And it was formative in the sense that that was when you like officially decided that medicine was not for you, which I can imagine is an equally exciting and scary decision, because you're completely changing your career path and something you were so set on for so long. And albeit at that point you had already made it through the first year, which some say is the hardest, just adjusting to college and studying by yourself and professors. And so what was it like to have your entire life plan change after one trip to Guatemala? And how did you know that that was the right choice for you to switch?
I think that so when I went down to Guatemala, I realized that I had loved serving, I had loved working with the kids and the people. So we went to like different clinics. There's a hospital down there. So I served in the hospital, and then we also went to different like outreach clinics. And I absolutely loved working within all the facilities. But I found myself like enjoying a lot more the worship ministries, the other ministries that were happening, other than the scientific side of it. And so for me, I think the biggest thing was like I found a lot of peace. Like as I prayed a lot about it, and like the Lord really showed that like yes, I like these are like the giftings that I do have, and this is where I still feel this calling to want to serve overseas. But maybe like there is a different route. Like there's a way I can use my giftings to serve people well. It doesn't just have to be through medicine. I think it's like it's kind of like a paradox because while it was like wonderful to figure that out, because um, I was planning because I was a sophomore, so that's like 8 to 10 more years of schooling. I just said like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that anymore. So that's like huge relief. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, now like this plan I've had for the past 5 to 6 years is also out the window. So it's kind of like I don't really have anything before me, and what am I gonna do?
It's scary. I can imagine it would be
Yeah.
extremely scary. Yeah.
It's intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially because I mean, like once you come back starting, I feel like junior year, because that's like in the pre-med realm. It's just like you start to take your MCAT, and like you start to do a lot of the preliminary stuff for schooling, and so people will just start to ask you in general, like, what are you going to do after college? And I mean, at first I was a little worried, but then I was super at peace with saying like, no, I don't know, and like other people were more freaked out than I was by me saying I don't know, and so I just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. So.
That's really cool that you felt peace, even though you didn't know what was going on. You still felt peace that that wasn't for you. And yeah, that's I'm sure a lot of people are really jealous of that. So specifically, and this is something that I've observed, just having friends that were pre-med and then decided to switch out, whether that be to another healthcare like PA or NP or nursing or to grad school. And I can only speak like to what happens at this school because I only know this school. But there's this sort of stigma around pre-med students deciding that pre-med is no longer for them, and it's thought of tragically and extremely unfairly as lesser because like the doctor is the be all end all, and that's certainly not true. It's actually I've talked to your sister about it like frequently because she'll be an excellent nurse and yeah. So that's something that you ever dealt with, switching from pre-med, and you left med in general. You were going to music, so was that stigma something that you struggled with, or not, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think that it was a little. Repeat the question, I apologize.
Yeah.
So trying to answer the first question, but I totally got it.
So the just how you dealt with the sort of stigma of switching from pre-med to something totally different.
Yeah, and so med school is very competitive to get into, and I feel like in science like there's a competitive industry, like things are always changing. There's always some things to research, but I think for me, like personally, when it came down to, and while I did face that, like I felt like I faced the stigma of like more so it's like you're gonna commit to doing all this, like why not be like the highest bar that you can, right? Like you're gonna spend all these years studying, it's like well you might as well aim for the top because like that's like the best place to land if that's how you're gonna invest. I think when it came down to me, it was just more of like an identity crisis thing, and like was my pride gonna get in the way of being like no, I'm gonna plow through and become a doctor because I want to go into science and that's more important, but then come out totally burnt and be miserable. I'd be like, no, like my identity is not in science and it's not in my career or my profession, right? And if I would be way more fulfilled and like be able to love others better by doing something else, then like that is what I should be doing. And then definitely going into like, I mean, science and like medicine in general, it's like, I mean, right now it's pretty stable. Like we need people to serve in this area. And so then to be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna not do science anymore. Not sure what I'm gonna do, and then jump ahead a couple of years, kind of jump ahead of the story a little bit, like then go into music, and then like, oh, on music, or like maybe it's not as stable because like everything's going to shut down because of music. Well, then throw on top of that, yeah, I'm actually going to go to ministry, so I have to raise all my money, so I don't even have a salary. So it's just kind of like, like, oh, great, 6-figure salary. It's like, okay, Lord, I have to trust you and you support me. Yeah. So, yeah.
I selfishly would be scared.
So it was very humbling, but I'm far happier and more peace.
That's awesome. So you came back from Guatemala. This is still sophomore year, and pretty shortly after that, developed chronic migraines. Yeah, that must have been fun for you.
That was the worst.
And then you spent a significant portion of your junior year in worship, music specifically. So 2 questions. One is on a personal level, what did that do to you, and how do you think that altered your trajectory? And then, like 1B is like if I had a migraine, I would maybe employ a dark room, not music, to get rid of it. So why did you decide that music was going to be the cure to a migraine?
So yeah, when I came back from Guatemala, I had gotten a chronic migraine. So if you never had a migraine, essentially just probably take your 2 fingers, just like put them in your temple and just like push as hard as you could. I had that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never went away. And so that was fun to like come back to school with. And then I took like medicine that they gave me to help with it, but I ended up taking on every side effect of it. But a big part of the medicine was confusion, and so I had no idea what was going on with me. And then the only thing was wrong until midterms when everybody walked out of the exam and finished, and I had only finished the first 2 pages out of 5. And I just like, I ended up actually just started crying. And Dr. Mulder was very gracious to me and was just like, but I didn't understand what was happening. And so that was really hard. But for me, like, I just come back from Guatemala, and I spent a lot of time in the prayer and worship room. It's like this room in the hospital, and it's where they have all their worship sets and times. I spent a lot of time in prayer. I think the Lord really spoke to me through that and through music. And when I came back to school, like I wanted to sing because, like, more than anything, I love to sing, but that's also something that's going to take, like, it didn't take any effort. And so I spent like an hour every day of like junior year, like going to like the practice rooms and pew and just singing because that was the time where I can just like finally like take my mind out of everything. And I felt like that was like the one release I could have from like the pain I was experiencing.
I just think it's ironic because normally music would not be a treatment to a migraine. But for you, like that's how powerful music was for you, that it was able to act as like sort of a relief to those migraines.
I agree, but I think it's like how the Lord ran me through music more than anything. It's like going to these practice rooms and like being alone, and like I would invite people to come. Like some would come sometimes, but more often than not, it was just myself. But it's like when I was there, it was like more than anything. The singing was just the way I wanted to be in the presence of the Lord, and that's was the treatment.
So could you tell us a little bit about the summer of your junior year, heading into your senior year, and the experience that you had with Redbox missions? And I understand that you were, in your words, at the end of myself with regards to the migraines, which I can imagine after a full year of having constant pressure on your temporal, that would be enough for anybody. So what does that mean for you to be at the end of yourself? And how does that tie into the experience you had with Redbox?
So I served over in the Middle East, and we spent a lot of time teaching English, and we did a lot of deep soul diving. Which if any of you have ever done that, it takes a lot of intentionality and a lot of energy, but it's also like the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. And so to me, so like we spent a lot of time just like praying through a lot of things and like going through our whole lives and like working through all of that. And the end of myself, I will explain that. So after I had these migraines for a year and a half, and I spent a lot of time talking to the Lord, but I was like, Lord, like, if I have this much pain for like the rest of my life, I was like, I don't want to live another 4 years. I was like, it was unbearable, and it was really hard. And I was like, I feel like I can't really think, and I just didn't know what I was going to do. And so the end of myself was like surrendering myself to the Lord and kind of just being thrown into chaos, and just like waiting to see like how I was going to.
Was that giving yourself to God, was that scary or liberating or both, or how did you feel?
Yeah,
upon doing
and
that?
so it was definitely like a lot of things were happening at the same time, but it was more than anything, it was just like out of desperation, and it was extremely because I actually like, so we eventually like throughout the summer, like I then like after like I'd done everything I could think of, like I prayed through everything, like I had gone through this book and just like worked through all of it, and finally just comes to the end, and I was like, Lord, like um, I forget what the exact quote, but it was like your next encounter, like the next time you meet with the Lord, could be like the next miracle that you experience or something like that. And so it's like we're not long for like or like go for that next encounter, go because that could be it. Even when you're at the end of yourself. And so I eventually was in a time when I prayed and the people asked me like what they would like for me to do. Because we were in this book. And I said like I would just like to be for me sins. So they like anointed my head and then they prayed for me and I wept. And like it was just like I don't even know how long the moment was, but at the end of it, like I knew like in my heart and like in my soul, like I had been healed of these migraines. And like I asked the Lord twice and I said to him, Lord, like, is it over? Is it done? And like twice the Lord said to me as I was praying, he said, it is finished. It is finished. And so what was really unique about that too, though, is because like I didn't get to experience the fullness of my healing from these migraines until Christmas break of
Wow.
2020, because I was on medicine still that I couldn't get off of because you have to wean off of it because it's blood pressure medicine. And right after like I had been prayed for to receive this healing, the next day I had 2 ear infections, and so I just had like crazy pain, and that didn't go away for like 3 weeks, and I had no idea where they came from. But then literally the ear infections went away, came home, lived fall senior year, and then I woke up after like because you stay up forever in college, so you never sleep either. Not to help anybody, but then I got home and I was finally sleeping, and I woke up one morning over Christmas break and I was like, I have absolutely no pain, and like it was gone, and I haven't had them since. So
Wow. Um, wow. So Redbox and music. It's a pretty formative combo for you, from what I can gather.
yeah.
And I remember you telling me about an eye-opening, from what I could tell, sort of a very transformative conversation with some friends that you had while you were in the Middle East about their experiences with music and what it meant to them, and how that may have altered your view on music and how you could employ it to spread God's message. So can you tell us about what that was, and how those conversations really altered the course of your whole life?
So with this combination of like experiencing the healing power of the Lord and just like seeking His presence in music throughout like that entire year of worship, like the Lord really like cultivated and really moved in my heart, like in this area specifically, like speaking to me through music and through worship. And so my friends in the Middle East, I was talking to them, and when they were like driving around and they were like listening to music, and I was asking, I was like, oh, like what's it saying? And they're like, yeah, we don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? It's like, I'm not gonna know. It's like it's in Turkish, and they're like, oh, okay. I was like, well, why are we listening to this if you don't know what it means and I don't know what it means? And they're like, oh, we don't really care what it says. They're like, as long as it sounds cool and like it's engaging to us, we'll listen to it. We like to listen to it. So it was really neat from that. I actually ended up sharing a lot of my touring choir songs. They love listening to touring choir or choir music.
Yeah.
And so that opened up doors for numerous conversations and just being talking to God. And like I could like I love that stuff, especially spiritual gospel once again. Like we listen to my soul's been anchored in the Lord. I love the song like countless times and like talking to them.
That song.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like yeah. It's I know it's so good, but it's just like this wonderful spiritual and like I ended up talking so much to them through that. And so like the idea came to me during my senior year. It's like, well, if this is the case, I think music has just such a powerful way to speak to people. And there's probably so many times now, like you'll think like music just plays in the background, like it's just like you go places or like you go to school dances and like all these different areas where like the songs are playing, and, like it sounds cool and it's really fun. But like, how many times does you know all the words or like what exactly it's saying? Which in some ways can be a danger because like of what some stuff does say nowadays. But with that being said, I was thinking that wouldn't it be really awesome there was an album of music that told the gospel, that shared truth. So it just opened up conversations, like to be playing in the background, or somebody would be like, what's this song say? And I was thinking, like, my friends, when I had this idea, I was like, that maybe one day they would ask and be like, hey, what is this song about? And it would just be an easy way for, in addition, to asking them, or to tell them what it means.
So really quick, can we circle back to the "it is finished"
Yeah.
thing? If I had done 5 seconds of research before talking to you for a second time, I would have known that those words hold significance for a lot of Christians because they are the last words Jesus ever said, right? Yeah. Okay. So that those words, just in addition to being a Christian and that being a sacrifice that Jesus made, they hold significance for you. And do those words ever, now that your migraines have been healed, do those words still mean anything to you? And yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And so I just think it's that reminder. So it's like those are last words, like you said in the cross. And it's like those words, like, it is finished. Like, what he's done is never going to be undone. Like, his love for us and like the love he extends to us to be adopted into this eternal relationship with him. It's like, it is finished. He has brought us into that. It's like, no matter where we are in life, or no matter how distant we may feel, like he's near to us, and as we call him, he'll be there. And he promises us this eternal glory with him. And so it's just like that, it gives you that unshakable confidence. It can't always be brought by anything else.
So during Christmas break of your senior year, this is when things started to get, and not their life was simple or mundane, but they started to get really crazy at around this time. So you've been accepted into this residency program again in the Middle East, and you're going to teach English over there?
Yeah, we're just going to go there for 2 years and visit.
Okay. And then, so you're accepted, and then 2 days later you leave again for another trip to Guatemala. And that second trip to Guatemala was even more life-changing than the first one. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, absolutely. So a year ago, I went back down to Guatemala to visit the ministry and the people I had met there in my friendship. Down there, I had been accepted into this 2-year residency program back when I was in the Middle East. And so I got to Guatemala though, and like the second I showed up, I was just like, home. Like, I just love being there. I love the people, I love the community, I love the environment of like where they live, like in the mountains, and it's like very farm style living. Like, your milk is dropped off by somebody, and you get all your groceries on like a Friday. They're in the farmers market, just like the style of living, and just like just like serving in the worship room and stuff. And so I was down there, and I was really wrestling because I was like, man, Lord, like my heart really like desires to want to be here. I have no position. Like, I have no job. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I have this position in this job elsewhere, but I feel rather indifferent about going there. And I heard stories of people who had like not really like loved the people they were serving. So years after, I was like, maybe this is just the case. Maybe I'll just end up going back to the Middle East, and then this love will come, and the same passion, the same desire. And not just like relying on my feelings for this insight, but like, okay, Lord, like, is this where you want me to go? And so I was down there, and I spent a lot of times in the worship room, and I eventually was then confronted by people who founded the ministry. And when I was with them, they asked me, like, oh, do you have a minute? As I was walking over one night for worship, and I was like, sure, yeah, I have a minute. And I asked the founder, Leslie, I was like, yeah, she was like, I have a question for you. I was like, okay, what's your question? And she's like, I'm not ready to ask you yet. And I was like, okay. Well, I was like, I don't know what it is. It could be like a million different things. So I was like, I'm just going to go to the worship room, like, let me know whenever you ask. Listen. And so I was sitting after worship that night, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm leaving on a Thursday. So I was like, 6 days. And that same Thursday that I'm leaving Guatemala, it's the same day I have to decide whether or not I'm going to accept this residency program in the Middle East. So I was like, well, I have this ominous question, and I also could just accept the program last minute if like this doesn't pan out to be anything of importance. I was like, I'm just going to wait. I was like, I'll just wait, just keep praying, and I'll see what happens. And so then a couple days later, I was talking to one of the nurses, and Katie, she's the daughter-in-law of Leslie, and I was just telling her like where I was at, and I was praying. I was like, Lord, just give me somebody to talk to, that like I can just like word vomit and just explain all of this, like everything I'm feeling to them. And as I was talking, she was like, first question to me as I saw her that day, she's like, oh, like, what are you doing after college? What are your plans? It's like, what is the Lord placed on your heart? It was like every question, like, felt like someone I needed somebody to ask me. So I just explained to her where I was at. And at the end of that, she said, like, I'm going to ask you this question. And the question to me was, if I would consider coming and working and serving in their hospital as like for full time as like a prayer and worship leader, like doing music ministry through the prayer and worship room, and like creating like a space, essentially creating a space for the Lord to work and for like the Holy Spirit to move, because like in any ministry, like Psalm 127 says like the house is not built on the Lord, like the Lord quickly or anything. So it's like that's the heart of the ministry, as it should be, is to like, and for the prayer and worship room right now, they just need people to do it, because like a huge thing is the fact that it's in rural like mountains Guatemala, and so they are finally like opening up full time as well. So as in like they have the doctors are coming and the staff that is needed, so they can finally do like surgeries and deliveries and stuff that's been needed for so long that just haven't been able to they haven't been able to do for the people there. And so with this desire to want to then bring people into like work in the prayer and worship rooms, like keep everyone centered on the Lord and have this unity, they then asked if I would do that. And I told her, I was like, I would love to do this. Like it's like my dream job. And like, but then the big question I was then asking the Lord was, okay, yeah, if like this is my dream job. I was like, I can live overseas, I can live like a farm style living, I can do music and worship ministry, I can work with the youth population, and I can even own a horse. And I was like, this is like that's like dream down to the T, right? So it's like that's like really convincing. Like you're like, I would want this dream, right? And so, but then the question I kept asking was like, okay, like this is my dream job, but it's just like a task to see like if I'll continue on this program in the Middle East, or like see if I'll go there, because like I didn't feel this release to just be like, okay, yeah, like, goodbye this other program, and then just walk straight into this. And so, or then the next other question I was asking was like, is it not even about a vocation? Like, is it just the Lord wanting me to surrender this and to surrender my plans fully? And I'm finally in this place where now this has happened, and then He presented like this dream job for me. And so it's like, well, how do you answer that? I was like, I don't know. I was like, maybe send like a letter or like an angel or like I don't know. Talking to me before, so I was like, it might be possible. But then, so I was praying for this affirmation and trying to know what to do. And the last night I was there, that Thursday night, I ended up sharing one of my songs with that woman, Katie. And so Katie is married. She has 4 kids. She's lived down there for 13 years. She like went on a trip and like never left. Like the Lord just like opened her heart to want to stay. And the reason I wanted to share it with this song with her is because it correlated a lot with her story. And so Katie, 5 years ago, was pregnant with twins, and then there was a series of complications, and she ended up losing one child after a couple weeks, and then lost the second child like 2 or 3 weeks before viral pregnancy. But then after these complications as well, like she just kept bleeding, and they couldn't figure out why. And they're in the hospital for like a couple months, and just things were not getting better. And she is like has a blood type that's universal donor but not receiver, so like couldn't receive blood, and it's just like all these complications about what to do. And then so they were praying because her lungs were filling with fluid, and they said they wanted to intubate her, which that means like put a tube down your throat and knock you out for 2 weeks so she could heal. And they're just trying to figure out like if that's the right choice, if that's intimidating, if it's scary to go into that consciously. And so they were praying about it, and then this woman, like there's like all these security checkpoints that come back to their room, and then this like woman just walks in, and she's like you've been on a prayer chain at our church in this city where this hospital they're at, and they're like, I've come to give you this word from the Lord that you've given to me. And so she looks at Katie, and she says like the Lord, like He's going to bring this revival, like the fire of heaven's going to come, and like burn up all the snakes and the witchcraft, and like the valley, and like thousands of these Guatemalans are going to come to know the Lord. There's going to be this massive outbreak of revival. And I was like, there's a whole lot more of this on. I can't remember, and that's like the first part of the prophecy, and the second part of the prophecy is like she looked at Katie and she said, "The Lord has seen your suffering and is finished." It's done. So they prayed together, and then the woman left, and then the next day the doctor came into the room. He's like, Katie, like, have you seen your X-rays? Have you seen like the X-rays from today? And she's like, no, like barely like conscious. And so he runs out of the room and he comes back in and he has two X-rays and he has the X-rays from that day and the day before. And the day before the X-ray is completely white, which means there's fluid in your lung. And the X-rays from that day were completely clear. There was nothing in there. And so within 48 hours, she actually left the hospital and returned home to her family. And so so then the song that I had written is from Mary's point of view, and it's about the crucifixion. And I was thinking, like, how do you write the song with this justice to what happened? And it's just like tasteful and like the delivery, in fact, the dialogue and the melody and everything. And so then I had this idea given to me by the Lord to just write it, like in that waiting period between the crucifixion and resurrection, like in that start, in the song starts as a series of questions. And somebody's asking these questions to like Mary, like how do you continue to go on? Like what do you pray to God about now? What do you sing? Like you lost your son, it's also Jesus. Like what do you say now? And then the rest of the song is her explaining back the gospel, and she explains about like who he was, like fully God, fully man, her son. Now God said she was going to be afraid, not like pain in her heart in this game. But then the big reason that I also wanted to share it is because I read that prophecy for the first time. I heard a little bit about it, but I read it for the first time when I went down last January. And the only words in the middle of the page were the words, "It is finished." And those the only words, or there was a bunch of words, only words bolded and underlined. And I'd written the song 2 weeks before I even went down on this trip. I had no intention of sharing it. And then the final night I was there, I decided to share it with her because the title of the song is "It is Finished." And it just sings those words over and over again in the chorus. And those are just the same words that I had heard, and then at least in the same words that were spoken over Katie when she was miraculously healed.
Wow. So, So you noted that you felt this deep connection to Guatemala, and you didn't feel the same connection to your time in the Middle East. And it wasn't that it was a bad thing; it's just you felt a deeper connection to Guatemala, like home, you said. And so when Katie offered you that job, you said you didn't feel immediate relief, which, if hearing that the first time, I would have thought that you would have felt immediate relief, because if it was your dream and she offered you this literal like horse, farm milk, whatever, like you'd be so happy and feel so relieved, but you didn't. And so why do you think you didn't feel relieved?
I think the best way to explain it, as I heard this concept once, it's like a call to release from. It's like in our lives, like we might feel called to something, and like there's like this desire that's calling me, but we can't always be there until we're released from where we are. And so I think for me, it was like after that job was offered, like desire, like I did feel like this longing and like this calling to like want to be there, but I did not feel this release that like I could just like the pain. And I think that just comes down to like God's sovereignty and His timing. Almost in the same, another great way I think I can explain it, just like I'm leaving in a week to go down there. They're going to live there permanently. And so it's like I have this longing I've been wanting to go since last January when I was offered this job, but I have not been released from being here yet. And like the Lord definitely used that in a bunch of ways, and like far better than I could ever imagine. Something I was like pouting like a child, like oh, I want to be there now, but it's like I'm so thankful. Like, but I think it's just that release of like okay, now is the time to go.
God's timing is a phrase I've commonly heard from friends and other people here. That sounds like what you're describing. Yeah. Okay, so then after did you decide to stay in Guatemala on that trip, or you decided you came back and then decided? Okay, no, you didn't. So that Thursday.
So I kind of said like I will think about it. Like I'm very much leaning towards this. Like I'm gonna still remove myself from the situation, go back home, go back to school, and then make a decision. Give it a week.
Yeah. So as I understand it, you wrote a certain song on the plane back from Guatemala, and even though you didn't know it at the time, you wrote it for a certain someone who may or may not be sitting in the second row and may or may not have been the guest last time. Molly Lehman, for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about. And so, and you didn't know her at the time, which is crazy. And then even crazier, Molly is connected to Inklink, which is the organization that you're going to go work for in Guatemala. So just tell us about all of that, because I got like spine tingles whenever you told me this part of the story.
So I came back from Guatemala, and there's a lot of widows in the mountains. There's a widow ministry And so I had written this song about Jesus, I think Luke 7, and he like sees this woman who's she's a widow, and then her son just died. And he said like my heart went out to her, and he goes up to her and raises her son back to life. And so it's like this beautiful parallel, like he restores her, like in society at the time, like raising her son back to life, but also like restores her through the gospel at the same time. And so I'd written this song thinking it probably was like inspired from like being in Guatemala, but then after seeing like the power of this music, especially through Katie, I was thinking, well, these songs are probably for somebody. Like I should start praying for a group to sing this music. Because like while I could end up singing them myself, like it would be more powerful if this like the song was sung from a woman's perspective, because the story is told from a woman's perspective. And so I showed up to school in January, and I noticed that somebody had joined the touring choir. And it's like a year-long commitment, and so I was like, it's kind of strange that somebody joins in the middle. Like that never happens. But then when I showed up the first day, like I like walked in and like across the room from me, I noticed that Molly Landman had returned to school. And so if you didn't watch, I'm going to give a brief summary. If you didn't watch the one story from last time, Molly came to school in the fall of 2019 and came to school married. And then later that fall, her husband passed away, and she left school as a result of that. Before that happened, but then she came back to school, and so thankful that you did, because then when I came to choir, like that week later, this song I had written, I felt the Lord tell me, like this was for her, that I was supposed to share it with her. Like I never heard a song, I didn't know her at all. I was like, I'm not even sure how to approach this situation. But then I just prayed for an opportunity to share the music, share the song with her. And then that Friday, I was getting lunch with Jesse and Giovanna, and Molly was sitting 2 tables over. And I just went up to her by herself, and I said, like, hey, would you like to eat lunch with us? And she was like, yeah, sure. And that same day, I was telling my whole story about the Guatemala trip. So she heard this like wild story about me sharing a song with somebody and having me. And the Lord opened the door for like a week or two later for me to share the same story with them with her and be like, this song I believe is for you. So like it's so cool how God planted that seed 2 weeks earlier, because then me saying to her now, it's like, this is for you, wasn't a wild or crazy concept, because like the Lord has already planted that. And so it was neat that like I shared this song, and then just like watching God work through that moment. And one thing I think that's quite beautiful in both of their stories, specifically the sharing of this music, is how I've been explaining it recently, is like they both knew the melodies to it. It's just like the Lord gave me these words to share with them to be able to sing. It's like it only took like a second until like they learned the songs, but it was easy to learn. In a sense, easy to learn the music now, but it's because it's your life story. And like the Lord just knew that and just like had written that so well.
So then, to bring it all home, let's talk about Allie for 1 second. And I don't want to give you much more of right. Well, so I don't want to give you more of an introduction, because I want everybody to feel the same like chills that I got whenever you told me this the first time. Sure. But just go. Okay. Allie and go.
No, I mentioned the inkling thing. So this is also like how hard to move like places all together. So I was searching for an organization to like go serve overseas with. So somebody to like have a community, help with training, help run finances, all that stuff. I've been searching for like 9 months. It was July. No idea what I was going to do. So I was going to work at the hospital, but I still needed somebody to like help me kind of get there. And so I emailed my internship in the Middle East, and I was just like, hello, like, and like if you have any questions, contact us section, and just like in like a paragraph, I was like, my name is Adam, like I've written these songs, or the Lord has given me this music to go share about this prophecy and revival where this woman has been healed, and I would like to go back down there, and I just need some help with my finances. And I was like, that sounds like you, right? And I was like, people probably like, that's probably not what you usually hear. If you have any inquiries, contact us section. But I just sent that to see what happened, and next day this guy emails me back. And he was like, hello, my name is Luke, I'm from Inkling, I'd love to hear more of your story, and set up a day to talk, like 2 days later, so I was talking to them. So I'm like going through my whole story. And like once I get talking about this stuff, like I could really talk for a very long time, as you can see. But like I can just keep going, because like it's quite remarkable and just like amazing, like how God has like written all this out. And I was just talking, and I realized like, oh my goodness, we're only like 15 minutes left in our entire conversation. And so I started to just fly, and I was like, I'm not going to mention, like I wasn't mentioning people's names, like I know these people. So I was like, well, I've written this story for my friend who came to school in the fall, and then Roslyn passed away, and I thought I was supposed to share the song with her. And he was like, oh, Adam, like, so then I was talking, I was like, oh yeah. He's like, can I ask a question? I was like, yeah, Luke, what's up? He's like, are you by chance chance talking about a girl named Molly Landon? And I was like, yeah. I was like, do you know her? And he said, yeah. So he's like 30 years old. And he was like, yeah, her father was my college pastor. And he was like a mentor when he went to California University of Pennsylvania. That was like, what, 8 years ago, 9 years ago? And so he was like, yeah, so we worked together. Then, there's like 4 things God did in this conversation, which blew my mind. Like, that was the first. Second thing, he was like telling me, I didn't know much about their ministry. And he was like, well, do you know what our ministry is about? And I was like, truthfully not. And he said, our ministry is to reach the 300 million youth of Latin America with the irresistible love of Jesus. And like, he was like, well, what are you doing right now to prepare for this? And like, I applied, like in the whole pandemic scene, it's hard for people to apply out of college to get jobs. I applied for one job, and my job was to work with troubled youth from Latin America who they only spoke Spanish, and it was in Pittsburgh, which is like 20 minutes from my house. It's like I was able to explain that one job and how it lined up. And then the last thing is like my heart is like travel to like share this music and to just like share the gospel through music and other stories like from the Bible. And he was like, well, do you know about our Corbin group? And I was like, no, I don't know what that is. He's like, well, it's already established part of our ministry that's been around, and it's a bilingual worship team that travels. And they do like concerts for like 4 people in the mountains to like villages, like hundreds of people in the cities. They've gone through the western part of South America. They've gone through like some of the US and Canada, and the next place they want to tour through is Latin America. And like what country is in the middle of Latin America? Guatemala. And so it's just like the Lord providing all of these things. But then the moment you're talking about with Allie, so my friend she's the assistant missions pastor at my church in Pittsburgh. And I was meeting with her one day, her and our missions pastor, Pastor Hannah, and I was on my way, and like, you know me, I'm not like the most timely person. I'm usually like 5-ish minutes or so late, like 5 to 15. But like, I was like, okay, it's 10 o'clock, 15 minutes away, I'll get there at 10:30. So like my meeting's at 10:30. So I left my house at 10 o'clock, and I showed up at 11 o'clock because like literally that day was the most traffic I've ever seen, like on my road. And then the only off ramp to go to my church had a car broken down in the middle of it. And so it's like I couldn't even get there. So I showed up late. And like it was so funny though, because the day before I listened to a sermon by John Piper, and he was talking about in Genesis, when it's like what the enemy means for evil, God means for good. And it's like and John Piper made the point to say it's not, the Bible does not say what the enemy means for evil, God can use for good or will use. But he's saying like the enemy means for evil, like God means for good. It's like I was late, but then because of that, there was another meeting right after me, so I just sat through it, and then I had all this time to talk to them. And the significance of that was because I got to share my heart for everything that was happening. And I was talking to Allie, and she loves Guatemala. She's gone there on like numerous mission trips for 5 years. And as she was explaining just like her passion for the city and for the people, she was reminded of this story. She's like, yeah, and this one story just went in my head, like I'll just share it with you. So she went on this trip 5 years ago, and when she was down there, she was talking to people who founded they were teaching English at some school down there. That's their ministry. And so she was talking to them, and then the woman one day was just like super flustered, like not a super flustered person, just like where is this coming from? And so she was talking to her, and just like, well, what's going on? She's like, well, a friend of ours is actually sick. Like, could we pray for them? And she's like, yeah, like let's pray for them. It seems like a very dire need. So Allie started to pray for this person, and they all were. And then this person like had a unique blood type, and Allie had the same blood type, which was awesome. So like she could donate to them. However, like they tried to figure it out, but it didn't work, and they couldn't get her to donate. But because of that like common bond, just like the same blood type, Allie left the country, continued to pray, and just like been praying for Guatemala ever since. Just felt burdened to be an intercessor for them. And so then I'm sitting in this room, this was like 5 years ago, and I was talking to her in late August, and I was like, do you by chance just like text your friend? I'm so curious. Like I'm like going through the CMA and just like knowing a bunch of people who like started down there and having like postcards to the CMA. And she was like, yeah, like I'll text him and see like who we were praying for. So she texted her friend, and her friend texted back, and the person that they were praying for this miraculous healing for was Katie Thicker, who was the same woman that I felt the Lord telling me this ministry was starting with this music. And so here 5 years ago, she was prayed for miraculous healing, and then was in fact healed. And then 5 years later, I felt that this is what I'm supposed to do with this music. And then 6 or 10 months after that, I'm sitting in this room telling Allie, like, your prayers have been answered. Like, your prayers for this healing has happened. Like the Lord answered that. So it's like I don't even know what other prayers like she prayed or anybody else they're like going to come true. So it just like came full circle. I don't know what shape this is, but it happened. So
I've heard that story like 4 times now, and I still have the same reaction every time. It's yeah, it's spine tingles. They're real, and it's crazy because that's like not something you hear about happening every day. But okay, so hearing all this back, you weathered some pretty significant life changes in not that much time, and so I just wonder how you handled that because humans, whether it's a good change or a bad change, are generally, myself included, are uncomfortable with change. And your life has done, in a lot of ways, a complete 180. And so, how do you remain A, comfortable with that, and B, know that like you're just going straight forward in the right direction? Change is hard, no matter if it's good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like that's where it comes down to like what you place your hope in, like where you put, like what you build your foundation upon. I think like last year, for a lot of people, it's just like there's a lot of changes. Like you don't know what the next day is going to hold. I can even imagine like last semester, all of you guys like not knowing like where things are at, like what are you going to do, right? But it's like in such an such a changing time where everything seems inconsistent. It's like for me, the only thing that helped me get through that was a constant God, and like helped me like these steps. Like I mean, I rejoice. I can sit here and tell you this amazing testimony of like what God is doing and like preparing all of this. But that's like before each of those huge mile markers and like this is amazing moment. Like I had no idea that was gonna happen. Like that was like I sent an inquiry email and then that showed up. And then I was like, well maybe the song will mean something and then I shared it with somebody. And it's like this amazing God moment. It's like that thing about like that your next encounter could be that miracle, right? And it's like for me it was just that constant pursuit though. It's like going to the Lord with like in my quiet times and like in prayer and like in worship and music especially and seeking him out through that because like that was the only thing, like he was the only thing that helped me get through that. Because there's a lot of moments when I was very unsure. And it took steps of faith to act out in them, but like regardless of, yeah, it's just like as I lifted my foot, like he planted my step, but at first I had to like figure out, like, I'm going to lift my foot, to trust you enough to plant it wherever it is, and just continue to walk in that direction.
So I've heard from quite a few students here, students that are interested in missions specifically, that Christians are people too. And to me that suggests that maybe Christians feel a pressure to be perfect all the time because, loving their neighbor. I don't know all the 10 commandments. Sorry, Dr. Good. But I know there are 10, so that's step in the right direction. So this is something that I personally struggle with because it's very evident that I am not perfect, but I've heard from multiple pre-mission specifically people that Christians are people too. And so now you are pre-mission. Is that the right terminology? I don't even know. I don't know what else to call it, but like you're going to leave in a week, so pre-missions. Okay. Is this idea of being perfect all the time something that you struggle with? Because first of all, the idea of perfection is ridiculous because you're never going to get it because nobody is. And honestly, I think that's an idea that people in general, not just Christians, just human beings in general, cannot empathize with because we all feel some sort of pressure, even if it's a small one, to be perfect all the time. So yeah, is that something that you struggle with, either from a missions standpoint or from a human being standpoint? And if so, how do you sort of navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first answer your question. Like last summer when I was planning, like because I was planning to leave in August to go, and so like I'm here before you know in March. So obviously things did not go exactly how I thought they were gonna go. And like during this season though, especially during the summer, like the Lord used that to prepare me in a lot of ways, and just like that time to like really evaluate because I did have like this ideology in my head, like like it's almost like you could compare it in some way to like the doctor concept.
That's exactly,
it's like,
yeah.
You're like it's this elevated view and like it's this like the end all be all, like they got it all figured out and like they're at the top of their game in their area. So it's like, oh, like you're going into missions, like you're like the top of the pyramid and like Christianity and all this stuff. It's like to realize too, it's like and I idolized and I realized that last summer. It's like people who are overseas, thinking like, oh, like they're really close. Like I don't believe that you can ever be perfect. Like Christ is the only person that was ever perfect, lived a perfect life, but just like they're pretty close to it because they're doing this. And like it hit me a lot, and like that was something I really wrestled through and like, realized too, that like we're all broken, we're all sinful. But I think it just really hit home, especially too. It's like make me realize how like with that in mind, like that's just like the power of the gospel became so much more real to me. And it's like I don't know, just like it drove my desire to like, yeah, I'm not going to be perfect, yeah, I'm not going to do everything correct, like, but I can do the best I can, and that's where like God's grace and His love comes in. But it doesn't give me an excuse to be like, I'm not gonna, oh, like I'll just like, I'm not gonna actively try to like do certain things a certain way, or like, well, maybe I'll skip like having time for Lord this day, or like, maybe I won't like confess this sin to a friend, or like talk to them about it. It's like, no, like he's still actively trying that, but it's like, I only know God as much as He reveals Himself to me, but truly seeing like the gospel shine through that, and to realize like He says that like He loves me, and that like I'm worthy, and it's like things that I cannot, I don't know, I don't know myself, really. So,
That's something that like, even could just be carried over into non-professional things, personal things, or
yeah.
friendships or whatever. Because I mean, affection is not real. So is there just one big blanket, and maybe there's not, but one takeaway message that you want all of us to know from hearing your crazy 180 magical story?
Yeah, I think that, so kind of that song I talked about, Psalm 127, but it's like, unless the Lord establishes the house, the worker is labor in vain. I think the big thing I want you to realize, like, I think there's a lot of really amazing God moments, but like, these are God moments. It's not Adam moments. Like, I cannot do this. Can't cure myself of chronic migraines. I can't write 20 songs in a month that sound incredible, and I can't, like, and I can say that objectively because they're so from the Lord. Like, I don't believe that. I can look at it like, yeah, like that's awesome, and I don't feel any sense of pride in that because it's beyond me that it even came to be. Like, I can't then meet somebody and then like have like that work, and then they know the person who's going to hire me for my organization, and then I'm not going to like know that like this music is like going to Guatemala to like fulfill this prophecy. It's like all these different things. It's like the Lord is like really like it's that like constant surrender. I love somebody phrased it once. It's like you're living, like we're living sacrifices, right? It's like what does a living sacrifice do when it's placed on the altar? It wants to crawl off. It's not already dead. Like it wants to crawl off the sacrifice, but that's painful and that's hard. But like that's the tough part too. It's like we have to force ourselves to stay there, and that's like the beauty of where God comes in and He just uses that willingness. And I just like establishing the plans in the Lord, and then more than anything, too, just like waiting on Him in His timing, because we don't always understand. But I mean, I'm only 23, and I don't know what else He's gonna do. I'm excited for it, but it's like there's been so much I don't understand, and yeah, I've seen like His faithfulness through it all. And like the last thing to kind of lead into the running to the chapel concepts, like that was super significant to me.
Well, I was going to ask, so yes, but if any of you have questions for Adam before I answer that, because I'm, believe it or not singing today, guys, you're welcome. So I know. So if any of you have questions for Adam, and then I'll ask you that after. So if anybody has questions, now is the time. No. Okay. Okay, Adam. So running to the chapel. What's it about?
So I'm second piece of advice or like takeaway. So like I ran to like the practice rooms into the chapel like when I had like my kind of migraines, and that's really cool. Like a lot of healing. If it wasn't a healing from the attic, just like healing in my heart and just like rechanneling like my focus and what I think of like who I am, what I think of God, and like my priorities in life. And so then when I came back from the Middle East, having them been healed from it, like the Lord really placed like really set me on fire for worship. And so then like if you know a bit or heard it, like the spontaneous worship group chat then like came from that. And I put like 15 people in a group chat. I was like, maybe like people want to know and other people are worshiping the chapel, so then they can just join them, right? And now there's like 380 people, which is like beyond me. And just like, but for me, so like sorry, it's like a little more story, but like my freshman year too, like I came in super anxious to school and like I struggled with anxiety. Like I lost like 20 pounds and was super sick. And I actually like after a volleyball tryout, I like ran to the chapel for Warriors because like I just wanted to sing and I wanted to worship. And I spent many times like, and I had always had volleyball, which ran right into the to Warriors, which is like the one night of worship they had of when I was a freshman. And so I was like run, like make it on time to be there. And then what I found though is like I spent a lot of time like running to the chapel to like be in the presence of the Lord, because that's where like I was longing to be. And my senior year, I found myself running to the chapel again, like the spontaneous worship nights for 11 midnight. But this time it wasn't out of desperation; it was out of desire. Like I wanted to be there. Like I would put my like anything else aside that I had going on, like exams and stuff. And just like trust, okay, God, like I'm gonna give it this hour and like things are gonna work out. And like even if it didn't work out exactly as I thought, like man, just like the joy and peace he brought and just like the work that was given there. But it was so you know like I'm like walking from Lincoln and I'm like peer across the lawn like to see if anybody's there and just like bolt across sometimes it's like freezing and I was like I'm just trying to get to the chapel. But it was so cool to see how God like met me there so powerfully like every night and just this desire to want to be there. It's like my final piece that I would say is a takeaway. But I wanted to explain that first is the fact that like for me it was worship. It was like running to like the actual chapel. But I think all of us like have those chapels like in our lives. Like we have those ways in which God speaks to us. And like some nights like you're more tired than others, or like you're a little sick, or you have like something super pressuring on you. And like this is something I tell myself all the time as well. But it's like don't sacrifice like that time that you like run in the chapel. It's like those moments, those hours that you spend, like even if you don't feel like you have this immediate change every time, it's like God is really moving in that, and like He's really transforming you, really working, and like really molding in the best way possible. And so, actually, I then written a song which I was released today called "Running to the Chapel," which just kind of encapsulates the essence of like I call it my senior year anthem because that's pretty much what happened senior year. But we are gonna sing it for you. So if you guys will come back.
That's my cue to not be on stage singing this song.
You can bring like a tambourine or something.
Yeah, no, I guarantee you no one wants that.
It might be this song. So this is first time it's ever been performed. So there it goes. I was like, I wonder if they can hear me. Right. I leave my worries behind. I place them all in your hands. I set my troubles aside. I seek your presence instead. I leave my worries behind. I place them all in your hands. I set my troubles aside. I seek your presence instead. I'm running to the top of running to you. I'm running to the top of you are there as I go. You are present I know. No others don't follow. You are starting revival this time. You are there as I go. You are present I know. No others don't follow. You are starting running to you. I'm running, running to the chapel where you meet me soon. Meet me soon. Meet me soon. I'm coming for you. Would you meet me soon? Meet me soon. Meet me soon. I'm coming for you. Here again, Lord, will you meet me? Here am I, desperate for you. Come and complete me. Here am I, here again, Lord, will you meet me? Here am I, desperate for you. Come and complete me. Shake the ground where we stand, show the light of your glory. Yahweh, you alone are enough. You alone fill us up. Holy Spirit, Yahweh. Shake the ground where we stand, show the light of your Holy Spirit, Yahweh. You alone are enough, you alone fill us up, Holy Spirit, Yahweh. For yours is the kingdom, and yours is the power, and yours is the glory. Amen, amen, amen. Yours is the kingdom, and yours is the power, and yours is the glory. Amen, forever, running to you, I'm running to you. You meet me soon, meet me soon, meet me soon, God, I'm coming for you. When you meet me soon, meet me soon, meet me soon, God, I'm coming for you. Coming for you, when you meet me soon. Running to the chapel where you meet me soon. I'm running to you. I'm running to the chapel where you meet me soon. Thank you for listening to all of the talking and singing. I actually brought, so we have stickers with like the album Songs for Revival, and so there's like a website, so it's like songsforrevival.com, and it has all of us and Peter and Katie, who is from Guatemala, and has all our stories written out. But like, what's cool is like, so I shared my side of it, but now my side, like, it has everyone else's side written from their point of view, so you would hear from Molly's and Brooks and Giovanna's point of view. And the album It Is Finished is also out, and so you can listen to that. And then we will be, I don't know if it's full or not, but tomorrow we will be leading worship at Grove City Line Church, and for part of their conference. And then Saturday we'll be performing our album It Is Finished. And what's really cool about this is that a year ago, when I came back to school, I was like, man, I can't wait to share this music. It's actually, I was in your class, Dr. Bean's class. And I was like, oh, there's this project. We can do like an evangelization task. Like, easy, I'll just use this music I've already been planning. And I was like, that'll be so great, right? And then we all got kicked out of school and evicted. So I was like, well, I can't do that anymore. And so I was like, okay, well, that's fine. But I had this feeling. I was like, man, I really believe like Katie's gonna come to this concert. And I didn't let it go. I was like, maybe I'm being like strong-willed. I just want this. But I was like, I had this strong feeling she's gonna come to this concert. And I was like, God, why'd you give me this feeling if we all got kicked out of school? Like, there's no concerts happening at all, like anywhere. And so the Lord, in His gracious timing, and not allowing me to go down to Guatemala as I had planned, Katie is actually here. Like in, like so their plane broke down from part of the ministry, which is terrible. But then the only place they could repair it was in Coshocton, Ohio, which is 2 hours away from here. And they had to come up here for this month to then work on the plane. And so we are performing together as an entire group. And so like the Lord has brought this all together across like 2 different countries. And so the tickets are online. I know there's like limited seating. I don't know what that looks like, but if you're free and would like to come and to see Katie and all of us perform these songs, like I'd love for you to be there. So thank you.